The NFL draft is over. My rookie drafts start today, so I'm going to get you updated Superflex and one quarterback rookie rankings. So hopefully we can help you out this year. Now, starting off Superflex, we're going to go tier 1 Caleb Harrison. Now, Caleb, beautiful dream situation you have going to Chicago. We've been talking about it all offseason. He's been penciled in to be the Bears quarterback. We knew that before the Justin Fields trade, and we were talking about how good of a situation the Chicago Bears team would be. And that was before they drafted Rome at 9. So now you're Caleb Williams going to a team with DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift, Rome, even Keenan Allen in town. Caleb has rushing upside. He's the number 1 overall draft pick. He has all the job security in the world, stepping into a much better situation than what you typically see with number 1 overall picks. Checks every single box. Super pumped. And I'm actually getting our startup rankings updated over on flogfantasy.com, including the rookies. And I think Caleb may be over Justin Herbert. I think Caleb may end up being a mid-round 1 startup pick before he takes a snap at the NFL level. Now, going over to the other guy in the same tier, we're going to have Marvin Harrison Jr. I understand that there are a lot of people in situations which they're reaching out saying, Mason, I'm sitting here with Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, and I can't sell a quarterback. Nobody in my league makes trades. Am I really supposed to take Caleb at the 101 instead of Harrison? It sucks. I don't really know what to do in that instance. I would say if it's a 10-team format, you're more than welcome to go with the wide receiver, knowing that the quarterback market's going to be depressed with everybody on average having 3 to 4 starting QBs. If it's a 14-team league, I'm for sure taking the starting quarterback in Marvin Harrison. 12-teamer where you're a little bit more balanced, I think it's going to be up to your best judgment. I want to be on record saying in a Superflex format, I think Caleb is the better option over Harrison if you are looking at the positional value of quarterback versus receiver. But I understand, I've had a ton of people reach out to us on the site telling us that they are stuck in that awkward situation and they really want to go Harrison. The last thing I would just say is don't take Harrison at the 101 just because you really like him. Because I understand he is a great prospect. But if you can use another quarterback, please go Caleb. Now, dropping down to our next tier, Daniels versus May. I know there's been a heated debate all offseason. All offseason, I've just said, whoever Washington goes with, that's who I'm going to rank higher. Daniels has the rushing upside. Now I think is a better situation in Washington than what you have with New England. And we saw in NFL front office, NFL talent evaluators come out and they took Daniels over May as well. So, you get slightly better draft capital. It's a better situation, more rushing upside. It's not like I'm going to be able to sit here and grind the tape and tell you that I for sure know that Drake May is better than Jaden Daniels. I can't say that. So yeah, I'm going to go Daniels over May. Both quarterbacks have a ton of upside. I'm going to rank both of them over Malik Neighbors, but Neighbors should be in here at 5 as well. Now, if Neighbors would have ended up going to the Los Angeles Chargers instead of Joe Alt, I think you could have made an argument for him at 4 or even 3 in these rankings. Going over to the Giants, it's an interesting situation in that you have all the target volume, but at the same time, we can say you probably are playing in a very inefficient offense overall with Daniel Jones still under center. Now, going over to our next tier, this has been a big debate that I've had all weekend now. I've been sitting here going back and forth between McCarthy, Rome, McCarthy, Rome, McCarthy, Rome, McCarthy, Rome. Both find themselves in good spots. Rome going over to what should be a very good offense with Caleb Williams. The issue is you are going to be competing with DJ Moore for targets. JJ McCarthy finds himself in a situation where he probably has one of the best supporting casts in the entire NFL with Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, and he gets top 10 NFL draft capital and he should start year 1. So I really want to rank JJ McCarthy over Rome. I think this is another very similar instance to what you're looking at between Caleb and Harrison, where if it's a 10-team Superflex league where quarterback's going to be easier to come by, just give me Rome. If it's a 14-team Superflex league or higher where quarterback is going to be at a massive premium, give me JJ. If it's a 12-team more balanced format, these guys are going to be back-to-back. I think it's going to be up to you in your specific league and how you know your league mates are going to be valuing quarterbacks versus wide receivers. So it's a very tough spot. I don't think you can go wrong with either player. I think both are very exciting. And I think they're a clear tier ahead of everybody else here. Like, I mean, if you want to make an argument for Rome, make that argument. If you want to make an argument for JJ, do it. Just don't be telling me that you need to go through and take Bo Nix or Brian Thomas over one of these guys. Bo Nix will be our next player, but definitely a tier down. Bo Nix, I mean, there's a good shot he just starts week 1, right? They get his college teammate in Troy Franklin in town, but still, I don't think it's a great situation in Denver. I think this is one of the worst rosters that you are going to have in the NFL in just terms of its overall talent. Now, I have already updated our rookie rankings on the site, but what we are working on today, and it'll probably be out by the time you're watching this tomorrow, is updating what we have with those startup rankings. So putting the rookies into startup rankings. Currently, if we are looking at the quarterbacks with how things stand, there's no way that Bo Nix gets up to Tua, Dak, Brock Purdy. He's not going to be up in that tier. But after that, where you were looking at Jared Goff, Bryce Young, I think that's kind of where we should expect that Bo Nix slides in. I think the very interesting question is, would you rather go with Bryce Young, who obviously was a much better prospect coming out, but at the same time completely flames out year 1, or would you rather just hit the reset button with Bo Nix? I don't know the correct answer to that question. That's about where we are going to be throwing him in these rankings. And yeah, of course, if you want to check out where we officially rank all these guys compared to veterans, and plus all of our rookie rankings going down about 50 picks, it's all on flogfantasy.com, plus all the rankings, pretty much all your favorite creators over there, plus 3 Dynasty rookie draft guides, plus Dynasty trade calculator where you can put in your exact league settings, plus Dynasty team analyzer. There's so much stuff over there. It's all on flogfantasy.com. Code FLOG. Get hooked up with 30% off any subscription. And if you use code FLOG, yours truly will break down your Dynasty team in a podcast. Just hook it up with the Dynasty team analyzer and then hit submit for review. And I'd be happy to check that out for you. But let's go over and let's look at our next guy in this here. Will be Brock Bowers. Bowers, not a great situation going over to the Raiders. I know a lot of people hate this Raiders pick. I think it makes sense, honestly, if you're the Raiders. I understand you have Michael Mayer, and I was excited about Mayer. I think he had upside. But, I mean, ultimately, it's not Michael Mayer's. I mean, it's not like he's some proven talent where we know he's a bona fide stud at the next level. He's an upside tight end. That was a pretty good prospect last year that didn't show anything year 1. Maybe he's Trey McBride. Maybe he's a bum. We don't really know. But if you're the Raiders, you can go out there, you can take Bowers, you get someone that's going to help you with your offensive line, you get another weapon in this offense. And at the same time, it's the NFL. I mean, you could throw 2 tight ends out there on the same field. It's not like you're only allowed to start one of these guys. This is fantasy football. So I understand why people are frustrated with the selection where you already had Michael Mayer. I think from a real life perspective, it makes sense. But obviously, it's not a good offense. And at the same time, you have to compete with someone like Devontae Adams, 4 targets here. So don't come out here and act like it's a great thing from a fantasy perspective that Bowers goes over. Obviously, it kills Michael Mayer's value, even though we were excited about him. But I do want to say, I think it makes sense from an NFL perspective of why the Raiders did it. I don't think it's as bad as people are mentioning. Now, Brian Thomas, Xavier Worthy will be our next 2 players. I've gone back and forth with this. Obviously, hook 'em horns. Y'all know I love our Longhorns. If you are looking at Worthy, he gets the best landing spot probably of the entire draft. The Chiefs trade up to get the man in round 1, right? I mean, it's hard to find a better selling point than that. With that being said, I did prefer Brian Thomas coming into the NFL draft over Xavier Worthy. Brian Thomas gets better draft capital, and it's not like he finds himself in a horrible situation. Of course, he's not catching balls from Patrick Mahomes. I understand that. But you have Lawrence. You have a above average NFL quarterback. It's not like you have a ton of competition for targets here either in Jacksonville. You have Gabe Davis stretching the field. You have Christian Kirk presumably operating in a completely different area of the football field that Brian Thomas is going to be in. So I like Brian Thomas a little more as a prospect. I think he finds himself a pretty damn good landing spot as well. Gets pretty good NFL draft capital. So I think we're going to be putting him over Worthy. Now, moving over to 12, this is where people are going to scream at me, and I'm going to probably stand pretty strong here. Yes, the consensus worst pick of the NFL draft this year was Michael Penix going to the Atlanta Falcons. They paid Cousins $180 million. Obviously, not all of that's guaranteed. It's pretty much a 2-year guaranteed deal. But anyway, they bring in Cousins. They essentially push their chips in the middle, and they're saying that we are going to look to contend right now. We are going to try to make this work right this second. And then instead of getting somebody that's going to help, they turned around and decided to take a quarterback that nobody was mocking to be a top 10 NFL draft pick at pick 8 after giving Kirk Cousins all the money in the world. I want to reiterate, yes, it's probably a very poor decision. Yes, it was probably the worst decision of this year's NFL draft. And with that being said, we went through, we looked out of the 42 quarterbacks in the past 20 years that were selected inside the top 10 picks of the NFL draft. Every single one of them either went into year 1 or went into year 2 as the starting quarterback for their NFL team. There's a first for everything. There's a chance that it truly does take Michael Penix 3 years to get on the football field, which is, I understand that's what everybody's saying is going to happen. I understand why they're saying that based off Kirk Cousins' contract. But I don't know. I think that there's a shot that unless Cousins comes out and dominates in 2024, that Michael Penix is getting on the field in 2025. It's a super flex league. He has all the capital. He's for sure going to be starting. Worst case scenario is it takes 3 years. And that's worst case scenario. I think you take Penix the beginning of the second round of your rookie draft. There's no way in hell he's worth less than that pick this time next offseason. I think he's a very insulated asset. That's probably not going to be doing much year 1. Now, with that being said, if you want to move him to the bottom of this tier, I am completely fine with that. With that being said, I think the majority of people are going to have him at the bottom of this tier and instead at pick 12, closer to pick 15, 16, 17. I think Ladd and Keon Coleman are both wide receivers that I'll admit I didn't love coming into the NFL draft. Their analytical profiles weren't great, but they both find themselves in phenomenal landing spots. They get the draft capital where they both go round 2 of the draft, top of round 2 as well. Keon Coleman's pretty much a round 1 pick. Ladd's the wide receiver 1, and it's not even close for a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Keon Coleman's the wide receiver 1. It's not close for another top 10 quarterback in the NFL. So I didn't like these guys as prospects, but it doesn't freaking matter what I think when they land in this kind of situation. And at the same time, I mean, obviously, this draft capital guarantees that they are going to get a shot. So if you wanted to put both wide receivers up ahead of Michael Penix, I'm not going to argue with you in the slightest. And I think most people are going to do just that. Jonathan Brooks will be the last guy in this tier. Hook 'em Lawrence. I'm excited with Brooks. Kind of similar to Penix in that if you take him year 1, even if he doesn't really do anything as a rookie, I think his value is going to be extremely insulated. And that even if he's bad, what you're going to see is you're going to see a lot of people coming out. You're going to see people saying, oh, okay, don't worry, year 2 is going to be significantly better. He just had to overcome the injury, yada, yada, yada. I think you will see a lot of people making excuses for Jonathan Brooks. So this is a running back that I think has that insulated value. He has clear path to opportunity year 1. He has, what I believe to be an above average athletic profile, and he can catch the ball. Obviously, we don't get to see that with the testing this offseason. But nonetheless, I'm excited about the prospect. I think he's the running back 1 in this class. I think he has a path to touches early on. And yeah, just comes down to how fast can he rehab from this injury. And we'll go Trey Benson as our next guy. With Benson, you're going to have to compete with James Conner early on, but pretty damn good offense, right? It's another running back that gets respectable draft capital, goes to the very, very top of round 3, pretty much a borderline round 2, round 3 pick. And if you are looking at Trey Benson, this is a running back that can end up being a 3-down player. Do I expect him to be Breece Hall? Of course not. But I think he can very easily be a running back 2 in fantasy. Then we're going to follow it up with a couple wide receivers that go round 1 of the draft. I did not like either of these players as prospects, but it is what it is. When you go round 1, you got to give you respect. You got Sticky Ricky. I don't know what the hell you want to call him, but he's going to be in here at 17 now. This is going to have a massive asterisk on it in that I am making this ranking under the assumption that you could potentially have a trade where Ricky is stepping in for Debo or Brandon Ayuk. If Ayuk is dealt, if Debo is dealt, I'm completely fine with this ranking here. However, if both these wide receivers look to play for the 49ers this next season, Ayuk, if he doesn't make enough noise about not getting paid and he's fine just sticking with what he has for this year and waiting until next offseason, then I think you can go ahead and move him down behind Leggett. Leggett's an extremely old rookie wide receiver. Took until year 5 to break out. But he goes round 1 to the Carolina Panthers where, I mean, you're playing alongside Deontay Johnson. Deontay's been on a clear downtrend for the past 3 years. I think Deontay at this point is honestly just kind of a jag. So, I mean, you're really banking that maybe you can end up having Bryce Young take a step forward in year 2. Now, going over to our next guy, we are going to be looking at Jalen Polk at 19. With Polk, he's a wide receiver that should step into opportunity. He's, in my mind, clearly the wide receiver 1 for this New England Patriots offense. Day 1. The difference between like Polk and maybe some of the other wide receivers that go at the top of round 2 that we know that they are going to be the wide receiver 1s in their offense, like Keon Coleman, like Ladd, is this a situation in which we don't know if Drake May's good. Drake May has upside. Drake May very well may end up being a good quarterback, but it's just not necessarily the guarantee that you have with Josh Allen. It's not the guarantee that you have with Justin Herbert. So I think you have to view him a tier below, but I mean, he definitely has upside. The analytical profile is going to be very hard to take away a ton of stuff from just because he had to compete with Rome and obviously had to compete with Jalen McMillan as well. A.D. Mitchell is going to be a wide receiver that we were adamantly against coming into the NFL draft. Thought he was overrated then, still kind of think he's overrated now. Dead last in yards per route run. He never dominated targets, whether it was at Georgia or at Texas. I'm sure you've heard me say this a million times. I'm sure you're rolling your eyes. You're tired of it by now. Yes, everybody wants to just blame Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers was trash, yada, yada, yada. Hoka Morans, I'm not going to talk down on my quarterback like that. I don't want to talk down on one of our receivers like this either. But what you typically see is if a quarterback was horrible in college, but the wide receiver was a stud, you see that wide receiver dominate with targets, right? While maybe they're not great in terms of the efficiency, the yards per route run may be down. I mean, the overall totals may be down. At least they're going to go out and get 25% of their team's target share, right? It's just, okay, the quarterback was inaccurate. They looked to throw them the ball because the receiver got open quite often. But, I mean, it was the quarterback's fault why the ball wasn't getting to the receiver. That wasn't the case with A.D. Mitchell, both at Georgia and at Texas. Neither school he dominated with target share. He was targeted at a very low clip. He's a wide receiver that was dead last in this class in yards per route run. And now you're going over to Indianapolis, where I think it's a great fit from a real life perspective. He's going to be a vertical field stretcher because he's an elite level athlete that can hopefully take opposing defensive coordinator and safety attention away. That way, Josh Downs and Michael Pittman underneath can soak up a bunch of target volume. But I don't know if it makes sense from a fantasy football perspective because real life and fantasy, two completely different things where I don't know. He's now penciled in to be like the wide receiver 2 in a run first offense. So I'm not too excited about A.D. Mitchell. Malachi Corley will be our next guy at 21. I think the fit makes a ton of sense. I think he's almost the opposite of Mitchell, right? I think Mitchell can be a much better real life receiver in comparison to his fantasy value. I think Corley, if he works out, he's probably a better fantasy receiver than he is a real life guy. He's going to be someone that's just going through and commanding targets underneath, right? So yeah, I think you can go through, draft him with confidence in a full PPR format. Touchdown upside maybe a little bit limited though. He just doesn't really have the big play. We're going to go, I don't know if we want to put Roman Wilson, Jalen McMillan, or Jermaine Bird. I don't know how to rank these last 3 wide receivers. I'll be honest with you. I didn't really like any of them as prospects. Jermaine's someone that I can kind of buy the story in a little bit more, saying, okay, this is someone that maybe just has character issues, yada, yada, yada. If he can get to the NFL level and a coaching staff's able to get to him and say, hey, man, you got to knock this crap off. We got to pull it together here. You got to fully buy in. We got to have you working hard at practice, the whole 9 yards. Maybe his talent is better than a round 3 NFL draft pick. I think if it wasn't for Chase and Higgins still being on the same roster, you could easily go through and move him up higher in these rankings. Yeah, I'm going to keep it straight with you. The last 3 wide receivers, I don't know how to rank here. I think maybe we should move up Burton just a bit. And yeah, if we're going to look at what we have from a 1 quarterback perspective with these rankings, obviously in a 1 quarterback league, in terms of how the running backs are ranked versus each other, it stays the same. You still have Jonathan Brooks 1, Trey Benson 2. How the wide receivers are ranked against each other, you still have Harrison Neighbors, Rome. I mean, all that remains the same. It just really comes down to where you're putting in these quarterbacks. So I'm going to be sliding Caleb Williams down to 7. He's going to be inside the same tier as Bowers, Brian Thomas, Xavier Worthy. I think he's going to be at the bottom of that tier. We're going to be moving Daniels and Drake May down to 11 and 12. They're going to be a tier behind Ladd, Keon, and Brooks, but in the same tier as Benson, Ricky Leggett, Polk, and A.D. Mitchell. We're going to move J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix down the tier below that, where they're going to be like mid-round 2 picks. They're going to be inside the Malachi Corley, Roman Wilson, Jalen McMillan, or Jermaine tier. And then we're going to go Michael Penix at the very bottom. To be completely honest with you, in a 1 quarterback format, maybe Penix actually slides to round 3. And we'll definitely look a little bit deeper into that for the rankings on the site. I just wanted to keep the same 24 players, both on the Superflex and 1 quarterback list here for y'all. But yeah, I'm going to spend the rest of the day here updating our startup rankings, making sure that the rookies are in the right place. And I think right now we have Harrison at wide receiver 5. I think we have Neighbors wide receiver 8, maybe Rome around wide receiver 12. But yeah, I'll make sure that all gets out for y'all so you can make sure that you know exactly where these guys are valued. And yeah, we already have the 3 different Dynasty Rookie Draft Guides, all like 100 pages on flogfantasy.com. We already have pretty much all the rankings from all your favorite creators, the Dynasty Trade Calculator, Dynasty Team Analyzer, the whole 9 yards. It's all on flogfantasy.com. Code FLOG. Yours truly will break down your Dynasty team with a podcast. Plus, get 30% off any sub. You can find that link in the description comment section. Thank you again. Appreciate you. Hope you have a great day. And hope we get to see you out with the video. Actually, I don't know if there'll be a video tomorrow. We'll see.